Psychologist James was 34 years old. During the day, he saved lives. At night, he tried to pull himself together. In this video, I will tell you a story that James went through. I bet it will interest you a lot. That evening, he had closed the clinic early. The cold wind sweeping through the city was like a long knife stuck between the buildings. The sky was clear, but somehow the air was as heavy as a buried corpse. When James entered the 15th-floor building he lived in, he noticed the lobby was empty. No security. No one sitting round. Even the television was off. Everything was quieter than it should be. He stood in front of the elevator's metal door. It was on the ground. Floored, the door opened by itself, and James didn't notice at first. But someone was inside the elevator. She was standing, her head slightly tilted forward, her hair covering her face. Woman, pale white skin, motionless, and strangely. She looked breathless. James smiled softly. "Good evening." The woman didn't move. She didn't lift her head. She didn't show her eyes. She simply stood there. She had pressed the button for the 4th floor. James stepped inside. He pressed the 15th floor. The doors closed, and the elevator started moving upward. 1st floor, past. 2nd floor, past. When they reached the 3rd floor, the woman wasn't even breathing, really. James noticed it. Her chest wasn't moving at all, but he didn't want to think about it. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor. The door opened. The woman didn't step out. "Wasn't this your floor?" There was an involuntary tremble in his voice. The woman still didn't move. She only lifted her head by a millimeter. Her nails were black, long and uneven, visible even from where he stood. James took a step back. The elevator doors shook as they closed, and as they closed, the woman turned her head very slowly toward James. At that moment, James had to squint, because on the woman's face, there was no expression at all, and her eyes looked like black voids. The elevator started moving again. James swallowed hard. The pressure under his chest was growing, but he tried to calm himself. "I'm busy. Stressed, that's all," he whispered to himself as the elevator rose to the 5th, 6th, 7th floor. The woman didn't move at all, not even to breathe, and James suddenly began to think, what if she's dead? What if someone left her here? What if I'm not alone with her right now? There was only one end to that thought: darkness, and James was being pulled into that darkness. But when the elevator reached the 12th floor, it shook, a trembling cabin sound, a metallic scream tightening the steel cable, and the lights suddenly flickered once. The woman moved. For the first time, she turned her head very slowly. James, her eyes were still hidden, but her mouth opened slightly, just slightly. She pressed her long nails into the corner of the elevator, as if she was about to speak, but she didn't. She only acted as if she was looking at him, and the elevator started moving again, this time faster. When James reached the 15th floor, he was out of breath. He stepped out as soon as the door opened. The woman didn't exit. As the elevator doors closed, she was still inside. The same stance, the same posture, and it began descending from the 15th floor. James watched the elevator slide downward through the small window in the door. The woman's eyes were still looking at him. All night long, He tried to erase that moment, but a quiet corner of his mind kept saying, "You didn't imagine it." The next morning, he decided to go to the building management. Maybe something showed up on the security cameras. The staff member with grey beard was sitting at the desk. "I saw a woman last night. She was supposed to get off at the 4th floor, but didn't. She was very strange. Do you have any recording?" The man shook his head. "Sir, no one else was in the building last night." James froze. A knot formed in his throat. "What do you mean?" "Someone was in the elevator. Pale skin, long hair, a woman." The staff member turned the TV screen toward him. Cameras, dates and times. "Look. No one entered the building except you." In the camera footage, James entered the elevator alone. He was truly alone. A weakness hit his knees. No, this can't be right. "I saw her. She was right in front of me." The staff shrugged. "Sometimes exhaustion does that." James walked out. The man's look was etched into his mind. Exhaustion. The word every psychologist hates. But what bothered James wasn't just stress. He had seen that the woman wasn't breathing. He had felt that the woman was there. He tried to smile at his patients throughout the day, but the image wouldn't leave his mind. Not just a woman standing in an elevator. A presence you could feel, a dark pit, and of course, perception started collapsing. That night, James went home again, but this time, he chose the stairs. By the time he reached the 1st floor, his breath had quickened. A faint draft moved through the stairwell, as if someone were breathing nearby, someone he couldn't see. When he reached the 2nd floor, he sped up as he turned the key in his door. He heard the elevator. The doors opened. James instinctively turned his head. It was empty, but there was something on the metal wall of the elevator. The woman's face, no, not her face, her reflection, as if the metal surface acted like a mirror. The image distorted, dark lines forming her shape, staring at him. James shut his eyes tightly, took a deep breath. Stress, just stress. But when he closed his door, he heard something from inside. Tick-dot, a faint sound. Light, metallic click. It was coming from the bathroom. James walked toward the door slowly. He turned on the light, and she was there in the bathroom mirror. Again, the woman, not like a reflection, something entirely different this time. She was standing right behind James. Her face was still not fully visible, only darkness, and James panicked and turned off the light, then turned it back. On Joe, she was gone. His breath caught. He looked at the mirror, looked at himself, but even in his own eyes, he saw a strange unfamiliarity. The next day, James met with his colleague and friend, Philip. He told him everything. Philip listened quietly, then lifted his head. "James, what I'm going to say might bother you, but you might be experiencing a perception disorder." James laughed, a bitter laugh. "This is my job, Philip." Philip frowned. "This woman, is she someone you can really describe? Do you remember her face clearly?" James paused, then thought, no, he didn't remember the woman's face clearly. It was as if his mind refused to remember it. Philip continued, "Sometimes the mind under trauma creates faces, from shadows, from lights, from memories, from memories." Philip placed a file on the table, a case file from years ago. "James, let me ask you something. Do you remember this file? James looked at it for 2 seconds, and his eyes widened. There was a picture inside. A woman he had treated years ago. The same woman, the same long hair, the same pale skin, but that woman, 3 years ago, had died trapped in an elevator. Philip whispered, "You've seen her before. Maybe your mind kept her deep inside, but you don't consciously remember." James closed the file. "But I didn't know she died." Philip nodded. Sometimes the conscious mind prefers to forget, and James was about to face the truth. That night James made a decision. He would not run from seeing her. He would get into the elevator. Again, it was 2:18 a.m. The air was heavy, the hallway dim. He pressed the elevator button. The doors opened, empty, but inside there was a coldness, a breath freezing cold. James stepped inside. The doors closed. "What do you want to tell me?" His voice trembled, but he was determined. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The elevator shook. The ceiling lamp burst, and in the darkness, a breath was heard. Not the woman's breath. Something deeper, more hollow, as if coming from inside the metal. And the woman appeared in the darkness, like a shadow, like a reflection, like a memory. This time, she was very close to James. She whispered, "I never got out." James's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" The woman took a step closer. Her eyes were two voids. "I was trapped, stuck, when you closed the door." James closed his eyes. Something he had forgotten surfaced years ago. A therapy session. The woman was leaving. The elevator had malfunctioned. James had taken the stairs. The woman was stuck inside the elevator, but he hadn't heard her. The elevator cable snapped, and the woman suffocated in panic, and the last person she saw was James. The woman whispered now, "You didn't hear me." The elevator began to fall. The air inside the cabin screamed. James shouted, "I'm sorry." The woman suddenly stopped. The elevator stopped as well. She lifted her head. For the first time, her face appeared empty, hollow eyes, pale skin, a mouth like a cut line now. "You remember?" And the woman quietly stepped back. The elevator emptied like a shadow melting. Into darkness, the cabin stopped at the 15th floor. The doors opened. She was gone, truly gone, only still inside James's mind. And James was no longer the same. The next morning, James waited before entering the elevator. A few seconds, a deep breath. The doors opened. The cabin was empty. This time, truly empty. But in the metal corner of the cabin, there was a deep scratch like a nail mark. Long dot, long dot. If someone had clawed their way out. James smiled, softly, painfully. Double quotes, "Now I hear you." He stepped into the elevator, and the doors closed. For more psychological horror stories from James's experiences, you can subscribe and leave a like. I hear you. Have a good day.